our generosity series. In this video, we focus on generosity as spiritual warfare. The subject of generosity is so important that the enemy fights it. And so we cannot wrap up a series on generosity without focusing on the spiritual warfare element of the subject. Like already said in previous videos, up to 25% of Jesus' teachings were about money and possessions. It is that important because Jesus himself said that where your treasure is, that is where your heart will also be. And can you therefore start to understand why a lot of us, we do acts of ministry without necessarily embodying God's heart for the people that we are serving? Because if our resources and our wealth and our money doesn't go into the things that God has called us to do, our heart, by implication, is not in that same thing. So generosity versus greed is warfare. We must engage it with the same fierceness that we do when we rise to raise a standard against the mechanisms that the enemy puts in place to pull us down in our walk with Christ. Jesus speaks about that elaborately in Matthew chapter 6. The first thing that he does is he commands us to store up treasure for ourselves, not on earth, but in heaven, in verses 19 and 20 of Matthew chapter 6. And this is something which very often people joke about, they laugh about it. But what is Jesus saying? He's simply communicating the truth that if we are not eternally minded, then we will find ourselves chasing after the things of this world. And by implication, the world's precepts and principles about wealth creation are the opposite of God's kingdom principles. While God says, give it all away and it will come back to you, the world says, store up as much as you can for yourself. It is the reason why Jesus called the rich young ruler a fool, because he thought to himself, I will just live the life of my dreams. And how many times have you as a Christian said that as well? It is the wrong mindset to carry with you. Jesus also goes on to reveal that the relationship between our hearts and our treasure is a direct proportionality one. What that means is you cannot claim that you love God so much if your heart, if your resources are not going into it. It's what he elaborates on in verse 21 of Matthew chapter number 6. He expects us, therefore, to have even a generous eye in the way that he uses the word eye in verses 22 and 23. It's not the literal eye. It's about the perspective that we carry into life. He says that the eye is the source of light for the body. And he goes on to say, therefore, if your eye is dark, how great the darkness is going to be. One of the things that I pray for myself, and I hope you can pray for yourself, is that God would cause all the scales that blind your perspective, that make it difficult for you to see things the way God sees them, to fall off, so that you can embody the kind of life that he calls you to live. That is the importance of having the right perspective, of seeing things not through our own human eyes, but through God's own eyes. And then he goes on to command us, you cannot serve both God and mammon. It is an allegiance thing. It is a mastery thing. If God has all of you, then resources and things will not have as much of you. But if those things have all of you, then God also will not have as much of you. Jesus challenged the rich young ruler. Jesus went on to encourage us to sell our possessions, him, the rich young ruler, to sell his possessions and to give the money to the poor. But as we wrap up in focusing on the importance of viewing generosity as spiritual warfare and engaging with it as such, we cannot not mention what Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 and 10, when he warns that those who want to get rich can wander from the faith. Where is your heart? Are you engaging with fierceness, the same fierceness that you engage with when you have the impression that there are evil spirits torturing a member of your church, a member of your household? Are you fighting in the same way to preserve the mindset, the perspective that you carry with you on the subject of generosity. It is so critical that we must examine our attitudes towards it, because it affects not only our ability to be healthy leaders, but our ability to be Christians all together. And we cannot not engage with it as such. When was the last time you fought to preserve God's way of seeing your life, seeing the things that you have, seeing the blessings that He has given you? And when was the last time you intentionally nurtured the becoming a blessing element of your call that you have received from God?